this is where we stand, and now forcing the entire industry to react to you versus you ever having to react to the industry. We're going to be spending a lot of time, of course, on trust. Somebody says, what is they ask you answer? It is the ultimate framework to help you, your company, become the most known and trusted brand in your market. That's the drive. That's the obsession. And let's remember as a group, you start with trust, always. And you start with the simple question, yeah, but if we did do it, if we could find the way to do it, if we got creative, would it induce more trust? Start there. Start there in your company meetings. If you're debating over the video, if you're debating over that information about doing that thing, and by the way, you might really debate some things within your company, because I'm going to push you to go where you haven't gone before in terms of your content, in terms of your messaging, in terms of how you're just slamming a stake in the ground, where you are in your industry and you're saying, this is where we stand, and now forcing the entire industry to react to you versus you ever having to react to the industry. It's the battle that we all wage, whether you're a marketer, whether you're an owner, whether you're a salesperson. We're in the battle for trust. Because if you look back to They Ask You Answer, really what we drove more than anything was the big five. But now I want us to think bigger. I want us to have a bigger impact on things. What we've got to be willing to do is the 4 pillars of trust. Number 1, you got to be willing to talk about what others in your space are not willing to talk about. Number 2, you got to be willing to show what others in your space are not willing to show, specifically through video. Number 3, you got to be willing to sell in a way that others in your space are not willing to sell. And number 4, you got to do that in a way that's more human than everyone else. Now, if you do that, you're going to be exceptional, you're going to be extraordinary, and you're going to be very, very different than the market. When we talk about this first one, talking about what others are not willing to talk about, there's so many things that I think about when I look back at my story with River Pools. Let me give you an example. When I started in the fiberglass pool industry, in that industry, there's a warranty on your fiberglass pool shell. And so just like your car has a warranty, a fiberglass pool shell has a warranty. So when I started looking at the warranties and I compared the manufacturers, I said, these are really, really distorted. In other words, they were written in such a way that wasn't actually beneficial to the homeowner, and they were just being, the legalese were like, this is very shady. And so because of that, I knew that would hurt the industry. And so I started to openly talk about some of the issues with fiberglass pool manufacturers and their warranties. Now, I didn't point anybody out because that gets you in trouble, but I just said, hey, here's what I'm seeing in the industry. This needs to change. This is the way it should look. And then, lo and behold, guess what happened? The next year, many of those manufacturers changed the wording because the market forced them to change their wording. That's an example of talking about what others are not willing to talk about. And so we need to be willing to do that. Now, the second one of these pillars of trust is, what can you show that others aren't willing to show? Chris and I basically connected about the job. One of the first series of videos he did was completely outrageous in our industry based on what had been done up to that point. You see, we were manufacturing fiberglass pools, of course, and we said, we want to show exactly how we manufacture our fiberglass pools. But up to that point, nobody really wanted to show it. So we essentially created over an hour's worth of content showing how we made our pools. So that literally, if you wanted to start your own fiberglass pool manufacturing business, you could. And we had manufacturers saying to us, what are you doing? This is your proprietary information. Before we could manufacture our own pools, go back in time, we were just another builder and we were carrying somebody else's pools. We went out to their factory and no manufacturer had ever created videos in the pool industry of how they built their pools, which I thought was crazy to me. And so I had my little, like a flip camera at the time, and I just go in there and I start to record in the factory. The owner of the company comes running out. Whoa, what are you doing? I said, I'm gonna record this because I wanna show it on a video. He said, but you can't do that because this is proprietary. I said, dude, this process that you think is proprietary is the exact same process we've seen in every fiberglass pool plant that we've been to. And he was just like, I can't believe you want to do that. I said, I'm going to put this on the website. And that's what made their brand start to explode. And so then when we did this, years later, we did it so thorough that once again, everyone was shocked. But what happened is we had pool buyers around the country start to say to these different dealers, I want a river pool because they're the only ones that are willing to show exactly how they make their pool. Are you showing exactly how you do the thing? That's your job. But are you showing it? Or are you saying it's proprietary? And oh, by the way, we're talking B2B services here too. We're not just talking manufacturing. We're talking about your processes. We're talking about your methodologies, the thing you could be showing, but you're not. My roofer said to me, we're gonna show our entire process of installing roof. I said, that's fine. Let's go even better than that though. I said, could you show a roof that you're repairing and everything the previous company did wrong? And then show the biggest mistakes that contractors make that homeowners don't know about when having a roof installed. Now, which one do you think is going to get more eyeballs? Seeing how to install a roof or seeing the biggest ways contractors cut corners on your roof that you don't know about? Which one are you going to watch? You're going to watch the latter, aren't you? And you see, the one thing that I see a lot of us in here doing that we don't understand yet, and we're going to talk about this as we continue through this journey, how do you start to see content in a way that it's irresistible? The person says, oh my goodness, I would love to know. You can create that video. You don't have to name the competitor, but now you have changed the standard of the industry because you can say things like, that way is wrong. And we would never do it like that as an organization. I want you to make tsunamis in your industry that causes the whole world to stop and look at you and say, who are these guys? Because when you've done that, you've done something extraordinary. Number 3. Third pillar, you've got to be willing to sell in a way that others aren't willing to sell. If you have some type of pricing estimator on your website alone, that puts you in a very different class than everybody else when it comes to selling differently. But there's other ways that you can sell differently as well. For example, I can recall for years before COVID, I said to my sales team, if I was still selling pools, I'd be selling them on Zoom. I'd have appointments all the time on Zoom. And they said, Marcus, that wouldn't work. I said, I'm telling you, it would mean that you could be the first contact every single time. You could have a quick way of vetting them and them vetting you. It would just be so much more effective. Everybody said, I just don't think we can do it. So they didn't do it. COVID came. And of course, as soon as COVID comes, suddenly all the salespeople are doing what? Selling on Zoom. It's funny how we can break the rules when we're literally forced to do so, but before then we're just like, I don't know if I can do that. And then magically we can do the thing. So consider ways that you can sell differently. Here's the good thing about a leader existing in your space, because inevitably, every single time, what happens? Leaders become complacent. You see it in every single industry. They start to achieve a certain amount of success, but there's something really specific that happens. It's critical that we talk about it, and it's the pride cycle. The pride cycle is the reason why you have tremendous opportunity to disrupt your industry right now. You're coming from a place of prosperity. Things in your life are good. Maybe it's your company that's good. Maybe it's your marriage that's good. But things are going good. But because they're going good, suddenly you stop to do the little things that got you there. You know what I mean by the little things. Maybe as a couple, you're not going on that date. You're not saying the nice things. You're not serving your partner, whatever that thing is. Maybe as a business, you're not a salesperson. You're not making that extra phone call. You're not producing that extra piece of content, whatever that is. You stop doing the little things. And because you stop doing the little thing, you start to get to a place of pain. Now, because you're in a place of pain, you're saying, gosh, I don't like it here. You start to get disgusted. You say, I'm going to change. And you start to do the little things again. And because you start to do the little things, now you find, once again, you reach prosperity. Now, the key, though, is that as businesses, we stay here, but we act like we're here. Can you do that? Can you come from this place of, I've got to stay 5 to 10 years ahead of the market? I can't rest on my laurels. Now, here's what we see, too, with these leaders. There has to be somebody in the industry that's willing to come along and break the rules. But what's so powerful about the rule breaker, because they're not the leader of the space. The leader doesn't generally break the rules. The leader is complacent, and the leader generally protects what they already have. Now, what's scary for some of you have gotten complacent at some point in your business, and you became the follower. We cannot allow ourselves to fall victim to the pride cycle. If you think about this, if you consider this, you're going to see it over and over and over again. Now, I can tell you this, though, disruption is not easy. I remember there were times when I was attacked. It's like a lot of these folks were saying, who is this snot-nosed kid think he is? What gives him the right to do this? What gives him the right to write about these things? Y'all could do this too, but you're not. You're thinking the old way. And so if you're going to disrupt, understand that it's going to get a little bit frustrating, because here's what's going to happen. With every single industry where you have a disruption, first, as the old saying goes, they ignore you. They don't even know you're doing the thing. So when Airbnb started, nobody was paying attention. Nobody cared. And then as Airbnb continued, suddenly they said, look at that ridiculous business model. So you're telling me instead of staying in a hotel, people are going to stay in somebody's house. They don't even know the house. Somebody's stinky house they're going to stay in. So they laugh at you. That's what they do. But then when all of a sudden the marketplace says, but I like that. I like the idea of staying in a house, a home, instead of a hotel. Now something really interesting happens. What happens is they fight you. At the end of this, the beauty is after they ignore you and after they laugh at you and after they fight you, well, that's when you win. And that's when you have completely taken over your industry. And this is what we are seeing. But in order to do this, it comes back to these 4 pillars. And then all of a sudden, you've created something extraordinary in your space.